war is over. The Darkwatch will be destroyed.
I love the PS2 because there was so much going on. You had big AAA games, mid-sized games, and small budget games. 3D technology had progressed enough to not look like, well, this. And no one really knew how to make games. There wasn't a perfect blueprint for a shooter or an RPG. Developers were experimenting. Sometimes it meant duds like Mace Griffin Bounty Hunter, but sometimes it meant classics like Darkwatch. Darkwatch places you in the shoes of Jericho Cross, an outlaw turned vampire. I guess you could say he's an outpire. That's not really a joke, I don't know what to say here. Anyway, the first level's a train level, and you know I love my train levels. During it, you accidentally release an ancient evil vampire, and are both seeking revenge and trying to cure yourself. It's a first-person shooter with an alright story, so you become a vampire, which has its pros and cons, then join up with the Darkwatch, a vampire hunting society that uses you to fight the evil you released. It's a fun story, but the game's got a fantastic presentation. Cowboy vampires are a perfect match, and something you don't see too often. The game is also chock full of shockingly well-directed cutscenes. Even if you don't play the game, it's worth watching it on YouTube just for the cutscenes. It's a first-person shooter, and I dare say it's one of the best for the platform. It controls exceptionally well, too, and this is helped by the powers you get. They're not reliant on perfect aiming, so you won't get frustrated with using the analog sticks to aim. Which, yeah, kinda sucks. You get some universal powers like a double jump, which, a double jump in a first-person game? Hell yeah. Also, the game calls it a vampire jump, which, is that a new vampire power? Jumping high? Anyway, you can also use thermal vision, which makes slightly more sense, and a blood shield, which makes 0 sense. More than that though, as you progress through the game, you'll be forced to make good or evil choices, BioWare style. You'll get even more powers that are exclusive to these two branches, and it's worth replaying the game once just to see the differences. Unlike BioWare games, the good ones, the story itself doesn't really branch out, but it's a good excuse to give the game a second playthrough. Plus, it's just damn fun to play. It's the same system like in Jedi Knight Jedi Academy, if you're familiar with that game, which you should be, God tier series. Graphically, the game's real good too, and the art design is phenomenal. I'm just heaping praise on this game. Anyway, it's like playing a comic book without being cel-shaded. I like cel-shaded games, but I feel like they can often be a cheap way to give the game a comic book feel. Darkwatch earns it though. The voice acting is great too. There's lots of big name actors.
That's not gonna hold Lazarus for long. Now see if you can ride as good as you shoot. What is it?
All the production values are super high for such an obscure game. To the point, it's a shame. The game sold poorly but reviewed highly. There was a planned sequel and talks of a movie, which of course didn't come to pass. Unfortunately, the weapons are nothing to write home about. They're your basic shotgun, revolver, sniper, and rocket launcher. I don't know if they had rocket launchers in the Old West. Vampires, rocket launchers, zombie horses, who's to say, you weren't there. Anyway, they have secondary fire modes as well, and you can melee, and it's actually really useful. While the weapons aren't the most interesting, they do pack a punch. Enemies will often ragdoll or break apart, which makes the encounter satisfying. Speaking of the melee, you probably noticed how zoomed in this game is. The FOV is ridiculously tiny. It was the norm for console shooters, but man, you super feel it here. You get used to it, but as someone who plays tons of PC shooters, it's a rough first impression. The flip side to this is it has a rock solid 60 FPS. The game's buttery smooth. There's also online versus, which is a nice bonus, but even more than that, you can play the entire game's single player story mode co-op split screen. The frame rate doesn't dip either, which is very impressive for how nice this game looks and plays. I don't have friends, so this is the footage I got. As for spookies, you'll fight skeletons, some of which can shoot back, big blob guys that explode, and flying apparitions. It does a good job mixing it up. The AI is okay, with enemies running from thrown dynamite, avoiding your shots, and they need to reload just like the player. And for better or worse, depending on your perspective, it's never been ported or remade. It's a game that's completely stuck on the PS2 and Xbox. Not too many games like that nowadays. So you got solid weapons, fantastic art design, a fun story, and wacky powers all wrapped up in this awesome package that's a blast to play. I think you'll have a devilish good time.
Oh, to hell with it. No!